So the Lincoln Project tweeted that Fox News is a threat to democracy. Well, at least Fox News is allowed within 500 feet of a playground. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Ruthless.
Democrats are set to take control of the U.S. Senate, House, and the White House.
This will go down as one of the most progressive administrations in American history.
God willing, everything is on the table.
You now can pass things without a filibuster threat, Cheney.
Oh, you'll regret this, and you may regret it a lot sooner than you think.
You and I have a rendezvous with destiny. We'll preserve for our children this, the last best hope of man on earth, or we'll sentence them to take the last step into 1,000 years of darkness.
Well, good Thursday to the minions and all the fans of the variety program. That was a nice little ditty on the opener, Smug.
I hesitated because I know how thirsty the Lincoln Project is for attention from us.
Oh,
They just get that little bit. They're so thirsty for attention from us. But hey, what are you going to do?
I mean, they're name checking us and everything they do. But you know what? I don't want to cover them at all. I feel like that's done. It's over and done with. And there is plenty of serious news. Look, we always like to have a good time, right?
Yeah.
But the one thing about the variety program is that we also tell you what matters.
Mm-hmm.
And we try to source ourselves up to the point where we know what the hell we're talking about. We're not giving you talking points or bullshit from either side. We're going to cut through all of the nonsense that is dividing the party, that is captivating the national media. And we're going to go right into it in this very program.
Yeah. Usually we talk about how we like to have, some serious stuff and we like throwing out some fun stuff, some candy for the show. This episode is it's like nitroglycerin. It's like a Red Bull and vodka, you're going to get great info, but this is going to be just action-packed, nonstop fun. I'm very excited, especially for the guest we have on today's show.
I like the RBV reference.
Yeah.
I don't think I've had one of those since college. Thank God. My heart would probably explode if I did.
This episode is no chill. The folks are going to get more than their money's worth. Ladies and gentlemen, our interview today, we have JD Vance.
We do. We got JD Vance, who's such an interesting guy from so many different ways. I think most people know him, obviously, for Hillbilly Elegy. And we go into it about, how basically the mainstream media needed a decoder ring to try to figure out how people were voting for Trump. And they used his book basically and he talks about how uncomfortable that sort of was. But he's much more than that. The guy was an Iraq war veteran.
Yeah.
He is a really thoughtful dude who provides great perspective beyond electoral politics, just on cultural issues in this country. And he's got some people who are asking him to run for Senate. So we covered that too.
Yeah. I mean, I can't hide. I'm a fan of JD Vance. This guy's a veteran, an author, a businessman. He can make libs furious just by stating the obvious, which I think is his special ability. He makes the Never Trumpers squeal by attacking woke corporations. And like you said, he could be the next senator from Ohio.
Yeah.
I hope you did a good job of pushing him into that race because we really need him.
Well,
can't wait for that interview.
I think you'll enjoy it. We've talked, there's sometimes Clubhouse does a post-show where we talk about this at night. And I have showed my cards a little bit and saying that some of these interviews go a little longer than others because it just sort of, you keep getting good info. And so you don't want to cut it off. This is one of them.
I got a heads up from our producer that they said point blank, this could be our best interview. So,
yeah.
Hey,
Many people are saying.
So, but first and foremost, we need to tackle the topic du jour, the one that I think most conservatives would like to avoid because it's uncomfortable, but we never do that here on Ruthless. We love uncomfortability. We feed off of it.
Yep.
And that is the Liz Cheney situation.
Surprise, because I know there's a lot of people who are like, holy shit, you guys are going to actually talk about this? That's right, folks. We go there. We talk about what needs to be talked about. And this is what everyone is talking about. So we're going to get into it.
We're getting into it. You have heard for months on Ruthless, don't take the bait. Don't allow the media to dictate what you care about. Don't get sucked into narratives that are not of your own creation, that are designed basically to destroy the Republican Party, to minimize any opposition to a socialist view of what this country is becoming without a Republican Party, right? I mean, we've seen what Joe Biden is trying to do, and the left and the media trying to aid and abet that along the way. And what their most popular thematic, and you actually hear this from the Lincoln Project, who tells you this, but their most common thematic is to try to divide the Republican Party, to convince everybody that there's a civil war, right? When there absolutely is not a civil war. But now comes the perfect opportunity for them to do that, because you've got this leadership rift within the House of Representatives in the Republican Party between Liz Cheney, who's the conference chair, McCarthy, who obviously leads the party, and then just sort of the party writ large. And there's this big discussion about whether to oust her. You'll recall she voted for impeaching President Trump. And shortly thereafter, the vast majority of her colleagues supported her in continuing to hold that leadership position, right? That's an important piece of information here, because what you're not hearing out of the mainstream media is the truth about why this is an issue before us. What they will tell you is, here we are, it's another referendum on Trump, right? It's another Republican Party civil war between two different visions of what the party ought to be. That is utter and complete nonsense.
It's total gaslighting. Gaslighting.
It doesn't have a damn thing to do with Donald Trump.
Yep.
It doesn't have a damn thing to do with a different ideological view or philosophical view or moral view, which is increasingly the code word that the left uses for, well, it's all about the morals, the morals of the party. What this is about, plain and simple, is leadership politics. And let me explain that to people, because having worked as a chief of staff for Senate Republican leader, I can tell you leadership politics sometimes drives a conversation in the way that you don't understand, because it's not responsive to the national electorate. It's responsive to the people who serve in Congress. That's who elects your leadership, right? The American people don't directly elect a Senate leader or a House leader or a House conference. It's their colleagues who do. So leadership politics is kind of a big deal. There is one maxim that cannot be altered in leadership politics. You have to always make your job or your colleague's job easier than it would ordinarily be without you.
That's key. That's leadership.
That's what it is. What are you doing to create an environment that gives your party and all of its members the ability to be together, to stick together, to have the most cohesive message, the most effective message, and ultimately be on the winning side of elections? That's your job, right? It's really simple. And then beyond that, do you make it easier? Are they providing a heat shield for you as a member to not have to weigh into every shitty thing that the media comes up to? Or alternatively, are they making it more difficult for you?
Yep.
Right? The end of every leadership position in Republican Party and Democratic Party politics is when they make it more difficult for their members. Right? Liz Cheney had an election on her view of impeachment. She had it. She won with a huge majority, saying we may disagree with her on that issue, but we think she's an effective spokesperson for the party. We think she does a good job, and we have a big tent here. We just want to win going forward.
I mean, that's the thing is you did such a great job framing it. The job of leadership is to make the lives of your members easier. Your job is to keep the team together, not to splinter off. And this whole thing, this is not over a vote or an issue. Folks, think about how this just like randomly appeared. this like magical, oh, is this about Trump? Is this not about Trump? CNN's ratings are down 50%. Do you know why they want this? They don't want to talk about how in Texas we crushed it and it's looking like we got a red wave on the way. No, they don't want to talk about that. They don't want to talk about how Manchin is essentially just like completely killed the Biden agenda. Biden, the entire administration, all their goals are stuck right now. They can't talk about it. How are they going to fill up the airwaves? Well, let's go back to the hits. Our ratings are down. Let's say, Republican Civil War. For anyone to take that bait is not helping your members. Taking that bait is not leadership. They don't want to talk about, here's an example. When AOC and Nancy Pelosi had their differences, right? Did you see journos going up to Kevin McCarthy and being like, hey, what are your thoughts on AOC and Pelosi going after each other?
Never.
There was none of that. They
No.
would never do that. But what did they do the other day? There's like, hey, Nancy Pelosi, what are your thoughts on this Liz Cheney situation? They know what they're doing.
They know exactly
what they're doing.
They know exactly what they're doing because they don't want us to be focusing on the fact that we're staring down the Green New Deal and DC statehood and packing the courts, ending the filibuster. We have 50 seats in the Senate. There's a 6-seat margin in the House. We are on the precipice of gaining back control of Congress and defeating the Biden agenda. The media doesn't want to talk about that.
Hell no.
No, they'd rather have us relitigating 2020 forever.
Yeah.
Forever. And if Liz Cheney wants to do that, she's taking the bait that the media wants her to take.
That's right.
That's exactly it.
And there is no philosophical or ideological. All the things that you listed, there's no difference between Liz Cheney and anybody else, right?
Right.
The ideological differences, the direction of the party as they would lead you to believe, there is no difference on.
And
the question is a leadership politics question. Is it easier or harder to fight the Green New Deal, DC statehood, HR1, and all the nonsense and tax increases that they're talking about with somebody who's talking about 2020 or with somebody who's concerned about 22?
And so here's another thing. So we have the benefit of a lot of folks supplying us with overnight polling info about what's actually happening out there with some data. Let me tell you something about this whole situation. Outside of DC, outside of Journo Twitter, no one cares.
Nobody
cares. No one cares.
It's a political class argument. It's nothing to do with the voters.
No voter, no American in any state or anywhere outside of like Washington, DC cares at all or has heard about this. That shows, that's like proof positive that this is an absolute creation of the journalists. They want to get their clicks. They want to say, oh my gosh, Republican Civil War, because, hey, their ratings are down 50%. They got to get those like libs back on track and say, here's some catnip, Well, we just created this.
Look, I mean, like obviously Donald Trump isn't blameless in that too. He's providing content in that area as well. But here's what else Donald Trump is doing. Endorsing a candidate in the Texas 6th jungle primary to help Republicans lock out Democrats from the runoff.
Yep.
That's a good thing.
That's
what
looking
we should
forward.
be focused on.
Looking forward.
Yeah, anybody who's still talking about 2020 now from a leadership perspective is fundamentally missing the boat.
Yep.
You're fundamentally missing the boat because the stuff that happened, however regrettable it might be, pales in comparison to the country that you will inherit 2 years from now if you don't do anything to stop what they're trying to do now.
It's kind of like that saying that like if you can't win the argument, change the subject. And that's exactly what the media did. They couldn't win the argument. They're like, holy shit, Republicans are showing up like a tidal wave. Look at Texas. So they had to change the subject. They're like, Republican Civil War. There was no bill. There was no vote. There's nothing out there. This is completely BS pulled out of thin air.
Right.
Because journals just need a story and they're like, hey, let's throw this out there and see who bites. Leadership can't bite on this. You can't let the journals have what they want.
I'm already thinking of like the hypothetical CNN roundtable where, Tapper leads into the segment saying, Republican Civil War undermining democracy and casting doubt on our elections.
Yep.
Next on our panel is Stacey Abrams. And it's important to point this out. Right, that the liberals and the media who are clamoring for this infighting don't have an ounce of credibility on the issue of defending our
None.
democracy, not an ounce of credibility on preserving confidence in our elections. The
Absolute
whole point,
hypocrites.
right? The whole point of Russiagate for 3 years was to undermine confidence in the 2016 election.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they say, you know, Trump's talking about 2020 or Liz Cheney's talking about 2020. In 2018, YouGov did a poll that 67% of Democrats thought it either was definitely true or probably true that Russia changed votes in 2016.
That's insane.
We didn't have a national debate about why congressional leaders were allowing that to happen in the Democratic Party. Chuck Schumer wasn't chased down hallways to hold some sort of vote, some sort of symbolic vote that Donald Trump's the legitimate president. You had Hillary Clinton in 2019 saying Donald Trump is an illegitimate president. Did anybody have to rebuke Hillary Clinton? Did we have a national discussion about whether Hillary Clinton crossed a line? No, of course.
Absolute
of
attack
course
on
not.
democracy. No one.
It would
They
never
are
happen.
absolute hypocrites on this subject. Here's another example: is think about what has the Biden administration done since Election Day. Are you seeing them go hard in the paint on like going after Putin and securing our elections? No, because they knew the whole Russia thing was a farce. And then, like you just said, Duncan, is they'll bring Stacey Abrams on, who to this day has not conceded that election.
To the contrary.
Right.
It was a litmus test in the Democratic primary election.
In the 2020 Democratic presidential primary, they all got on stage and said, Stacey Abrams won the election in Georgia in 2018. And everybody clapped. They applauded. She has never conceded that election, and no one cared. There were no panels on CNN about how this undermines democracy. No.
It shows you the media are absolute hypocrites. They have no core beliefs. This entire situation doesn't even exist. It's a creation of the media. There was no vote. There's no issue. This is over. This is the media just saying, Trump used to get us ratings, so let's try to find a way to cause Republicans to fight.
Don't take
leadership. Don't take the bait.
Don't take the bait. And that's what's happening here. I want to be very, very clear. This may be unpopular to the minions and the fans of this podcast. I like Liz Cheney. I think Liz Cheney's smart. I think her family has done a world of good in conservative politics for a long time. I have great respect for everything that they've done. I just simply think she's made a mistake. I think she had a real opportunity to vote her convictions and then move off of it and focus on the future and bring the party with her on extremely important issues, fighting back on the leftist agenda. And there was a lot of people who were listening to her because she was kind of a unifying force. She was people who weren't with Trump, who didn't like Trump, but ultimately were conservatives. Like, that's an important wing of the party, right? And she uniquely spoke to them. But instead of focusing forward, she got caught in the media trap. The media trap is constantly asking her about Donald Trump and about impeachment and about November and everything else. And she just kind of got stuck in that and continued to answer the question. That is a mistake.
Right. And to your point, Holmes, about getting the voters who maybe aren't hardcore fans of Donald Trump. How about the $6 trillion in spending that Biden's trying to do? How about packing the courts? How about eliminating the filibuster, DC statehood, the Green New Deal? We could talk about all of those things and get those voters. Why don't we do that?
Yeah. Dems are playing for keeps. And like, that's what makes me so furious about the situation. Like, Liz Cheney, you should know so much better. You were elected to be the voice of the people. To take the bait from the media like this is absolutely ridiculous. And
they invented it. Like her dad invented the throwing it back in the media's face. Right. Yeah. He was like the OG, I'm not going to answer the question you want me to answer because you want me to answer it type thing. And I feel like she has all of those qualities within her, but I don't know how she has gotten to the point where she feels like she needs to play the media narrative.
Yeah.
in order to continue to explain herself. She needs to explain nothing. She won re-election to the House conference after her impeachment vote. When they took it on a special election to do it, she had all the runway in the world to go forward.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It's like she had her vote. There's a great quote. You can either make a point or you can make a difference. And
McCarthy.
Why is she trying to make this point? That's not helping unite the party. That's not leadership.
Reporters asked Mitch McConnell to weigh in on this situation. What did he say? He said, "I'm 100% focused on stopping this administration."
Yeah.
Period. That's it.
Honestly, I'm taking a huge risk being critical because you got to think about Dick Cheney. The man shoots his friends in the face with a shotgun. What would he do to you if you go after his family? So, just to be clear, Dick, no beef. I have no beef with you, man. We are 100% cool.
Along those lines, I want to make it perfectly clear. I support Liz Cheney. I support Liz Cheney's reelection. I know that's going to be unpopular amongst people. I don't think we need to be monolithic and pledge our loyalty exclusively to anything. I think all these voices are extremely important. I just think she made a mistake here. Ultimately, I don't know what happens next week if they vote to remove her or not, but we just explained to you why that's happening. It is not a civil war. It is not a Trump referendum. It actually has nothing to do with the former president. It is a leadership under the dome issue.
It is.
That is being litigated and totally misconstrued by the mainstream media.
And that's why, like I said, let's wrap it on that. This is an absolute creation of the media. That's why the polling shows no one cares or has even heard about this outside of DC.
So let's turn the page on all that. I'm glad we did it, though. I feel like every once in a while we got to take care of those topics because, avoiding them is cowardly and clarity is important.
We tell people to not take the bait. We tell people to not take the bait, and then they take the bait. So we don't have a choice. You
don't have a choice. You got to do it. So anyway, that's our role here at the Variety Program. We sing, we dance, we entertain, and we occasionally take on the tough topics.
And that's why the people love us. And speaking of love, could there be anything that liberals love more than being locked down forever?
Oh. It is incredible. So there is an amazing piece that was written this week in all places, The Atlantic. Emma Green, who I don't know personally, but writes for The Atlantic, wrote a piece entitled "The Liberals Who Can't Quit the Lockdown." The subtitle is "Progressive Communities Have Been Home to Some of the Fiercest Battles Over COVID-19 Policies, and Some Liberal Policymakers Have Left Scientific Evidence Behind." Yes, we've told you a million times yes.
Yeah, I have to say, and I said this when Emma put the story up. I don't know her personally. I saw her tweet this. I smashed that follow button. And as I predicted, so as soon as I saw the story, I was like, okay, number one, it's incredible you actually wrote this. Number two, I do not envy your replies. I mean, she got nuked to hell.
Oh, I'm sure.
All the replies were like, hey, listen, I know we need to trust the science, but even though I'm vaccinated, I'm still going to wear a mask outside, even though the CDC says I don't need to because exactly. I saw so many replies who were like, I wear a mask outside so people won't think I'm a Republican. That's what this is about. This has nothing to do about trust the science or trust the experts. Number one, the whole trust the science thing bugged me so much. It's like, oh yes, science in its nature is an ever evolving, set of facts that get tested against it, and to turn it into this dogmatic thing like the science says mask always is the antithesis of science. And for them to say, oh, listen, even though the CDC said this, I'm going to wear a mask outside. It's 100% just like putting on a jersey and being like, I want to be a virtuous lib. I want everyone to like me, because I feel like 90% of liberals are just people who are too cowardly to have their own set of beliefs and just want to be liked. It's like the whole wine mom mentality. I don't want to start fights at book club, so I'm just going to agree with whatever you say.
So I mean, we talked about this in the last episode, and And you want to have a little bit of compassion for some people. I mean, we were all in lockdown, for a long time. I mean, gosh, it's been more than a year now since COVID started. And obviously people are working through a lot of stuff here, like deep, fears.
There's serious mental health.
And honestly, I think it's going to take years for us to really reckon with that as a society, 100%. But here's the thing. It's insane. What is laid out in this article is not just anti-science. It's anti-children. It's anti-rational common sense. It to indulge these people wanting to live this way forever is damaging to them. It's absolutely damaging to them. And I mean, like, frankly, it's kind of fantastic right now. My commute's 18 minutes. I
love this. So when we were having beers the other night, Duncan had the best take where he was like, honestly, think about what's happening here. The libs just want to shut themselves in from society forever.
Right. Dude, door to door in 18 minutes. There's no line at Subway. It's kind of nice.
I was like, holy moly. This is like, that's why I had such a great time when I'm outside. It's just like a free society. Like I've gotten my shots. I'm out there. Everyone's in a great mood. It's like, holy moly. This is just like nothing but conservatives out in the streets.
Like
the libs are in their bunkers.
Yeah, life
super
without
fun.
libs.
Super fun until election day when Stacey Abrams goes and rounds up all their votes. And then ruins your day.
I mean, I bet that's why they need ballot harvesting, because like the libs are just like, I think a certain part of them, like their brain gets, it's weird. Their brain gets like a serotonin hit, not like from having a family or going to church or any of these like productive things, just doom and fear.
Right.
Like, oh my God, there's a variant and it's going to kill me, even though I've been immunized, and I should probably wear a mask while I'm in the shower. It's unbelievable. It's completely anti-science.
It's as if for the first time, people have been educated to the dangers of the world around them. Like up until March 2020, viruses didn't exist, right? That illness didn't exist, that risk didn't exist, right? Like they're far more likely, if you're immunized, to walk out your front door and get hit by a frickin' car than you are to die of COVID. Yet these people are double masking it indoors.
I mean, that's the, and like, I wanted to bring this up. So the Washington Examiner had this great piece, which just blew my mind, saying that Oregon has made its COVID-19 rules for businesses permanent.
Oh my God.
Permanent. The order, which requires masks indoor for both employees and customers and outdoors in certain situations, will only be repealed when it's, quote, no longer needed.
Wow. And when is that? Like who determines that? Yeah. It's not the science.
Nope. Because the CDC has already said straight up, if you're immunized, you go outside, you don't need to wear a mask. It's become a very strange thing where they cling to it because of this like strange partisan thing that if I wear a mask, it means I'm good, which I'm telling you is like the crux of all liberal politics, is trying to make other people think you're good. Like something's missing there that they have to make up for.
Like a reinforcement. You have to sort of believe that you're working on helping other people believe how great you are.
The problem with that is, and Smug, I remember you showed me this video of the track and field athlete, this girl passing out at the finish line because she was wearing a mask.
Oh,
and it's like, how can you think that you're the good person when you're subjecting children to that? It's just this social pressure from these liberal communities. Like, I don't know how we undo it. But like last week, we're like, yeah, maybe we'll move over to the chin diaper in DC, so we don't freak out the libs. But I mean, I think it's just time to take it off.
No, I already moved off of it, to be honest with you. And we got some awesome listener mail on that. It was like, take it off, you peas.
That's great.
Which, look, I've been pretty thoughtful about this stuff, right? I've not been a COVID denier. I've not been, a always masker. I've tried to balance the fact that I've got a young family and kids who are not immunized, and we don't understand what exactly happens when kids get COVID, if there's long-term things. I don't know all that stuff, and it kind of makes me nervous. But at some level, we've now entered the point where we've done everything we can, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we're a society, and we have obligations to ourselves, to our families, to our friends, to our neighborhoods, to our communities, to our states, to our country, to get out and to begin living life again. And particularly when you look at objective stats that show that our likelihood of being mortally impacted by COVID is less than tuberculosis, for crying out loud. At this point, you got to make moves. And these people, like I look at in that Atlantic article, there was this town of Brookline, Massachusetts, which apparently is like the, top 5 educated places in the entire planet. They took a look at the science and the CDC recommendations, and they just rejected it.
Yeah.
Flat out rejected it. They said that they are going to make people wear masks outside, that they're not taking any of the restrictions off. Like, these are supposedly smart people. It's not. They're not smart. What they are is ideological. And somehow along the way, elitism in this country has given way, whatever intellectual advantage they had, to just straight partisanship.
It's so funny. It's so funny you say that, Holmes, because you remember when Texas removed its mask mandate, Biden was like, that's Neanderthal thinking. And then now, 6 weeks later, 2 months later, all the cases are down in Texas.
Right.
That's the thing.
Right.
So I think a couple things. So Holmes brought up a great point. If nothing else, I want folks to know we live in a society. Number one. But number two, a major problem has been with the trust the experts. And a prime example of this has been Anthony Fauci, who, number one, he has to be the sharpest operator in DC to still have his job. And his book deal, he's going to make more money than
presidents.
Yeah. Like, it's going to be insane the advance he gets on his book deal. But he recently said he wouldn't travel or eat at restaurants, even though he's fully vaccinated. Despite, this is in complete opposition to CDC guidance that these activities can be safe for vaccinated people who take precautions. That's completely insane. And that's at the heart of the problem.
It's dangerous. It's dangerous.
It's exactly it.
It's smug. It's preying on the emotions of people too, because I look, at the risk of revealing too much here. I mean, look, my family and the way that we've approached all this thing, like, we had a baby during COVID, right? When there were no answers about what's going to happen. And we were terrified about what impact we would have if we brought COVID into our house with an infant, And so we were really cautious. We were really serious about it, and overly so. In retrospect, way more cautious than we probably needed to be. But all of that residual concern still lasts, and still lasts with millions of families like ours that look around and they're like, I don't know, man. There's an open question. Nobody's giving me good answers. I'm hearing that the CDC I don't need to wear a mask outside, but then I watched Joe Biden double mask it, and it's not that it's just the partisans, right? We make fun of the partisans because they should be made fun of, because they're idiots. And they have an ideological goal to keep us locked in our homes. But there's a whole bunch of people in the middle of this country that aren't listening to Ruthless podcast, right? They're not listening to the variety program. They're listening to Anthony Fauci. And what they're hearing is a ton of uncertainty about whether they continue their lives. And it's very difficult. We'll never make any success here by shaming them into moving out of that. Like, we got to figure out a better way to get these people reintegrated into society, or else we literally are going to have people that are shut-ins.
And I think you brought up
Doug and Kamala. Did you see the Doug and Kamala thing?
They kissed with their masks on.
They kissed with their masks on.
So weird.
What a perfect example of what I'm talking about.
Right.
While outdoors and they're both vaccinated. That is so weird.
The example from our political leaders right now is not engendering confidence in getting back to normal.
And I love how Holmes brought this up, that like, the media is trying to portray this as some kind of like a partisan thing of signaling, but it is actually dangerous. Like there's this statistic that, 3 million, that's the estimate of how many children have dropped out of school as a result of the pandemic.
My God.
Think about that.
3 million?
3 million. That's
oh, man.
Like Duncan said, is we're going to see like echoes of all of this for a long time. And not just that. And this is the other thing. This tells you so much about like, especially the woke BS that the left has. They don't care about anyone. I got the statistic. A disproportionate number of those disengaged students are lower income Black, Latino, and Native American children who've struggled to keep up in classrooms that are partly or fully remote. That's who suffers.
We've been saying this.
That's who suffers. Like all these libs, like if you think about where their thought center, where their leadership, where their ideas come from, they're coming from New York and DC. They're coming from these journalists in Brooklyn who have their Ivy League degrees and trust funds. And to them, lockdown means, oh, we got to have a Zoom call. Haha, I got to wear sweatpants. It's been a while since I haven't worn sweatpants. It's like a fun little adventure.
My book release party is going to be on Zoom.
Yeah. They think it's all fun and games. The thing that is such a, like, I saw this great statistic where it's fewer than 30% of people over the past year have been able to work from home. So all the stories you see about how like, oh, everybody's on Zoom, the people writing those articles are lucky enough to have a job that they can work from Zoom. And because they do that, because the people who can read those articles during the day are not people who are out there on the front lines dealing with this, the delivery people, the people in grocery stores. No, those are other bloggers.
Relate.
They cannot relate. They've completely lost touch.
I know. That's the thing. And that's a sad place of where we're at. I mean, look, I'm all for making fun of the libs, and to Duncan's point, I'm all for making fun of people who are going to stay indoors and frankly make my commute in a heck of a lot easier. But ultimately, like, look, whatever you thought about Trump and his position of being seen in a mask. Remember that was a big deal last spring, and like he won't be seen in a mask, and it sends a terrible message to the country, right? It's a dangerous message to the country. The inverse is equally true.
Correct.
When you are watching Kamala Harris kiss her frickin' husband through a mask outdoors by themselves, that is also equally harmful.
Psychotic.
It's psychotic. It's insane. It is pushing this country further and further away from being able to come back together. And both things can be true. Both things can be true. This is not an ideological battle. You can say, hey, look, when we didn't know what this virus was going to do, it was probably worthwhile to put them on a mask and take all precautions because, we didn't know. We didn't know. Now we do know. And now we do have CDC guidance. And yet these still are not following it. That is dangerous. Anyway, It got me fired up.
I like, what? I also, I would like to have, whether it's us having beers or on the show, I want your perspective as someone who just had a child and this like hell plague shows up, because I know for a fact you've been extremely cautious. I mean, anyone who just had a baby and this hell plague with no experience, like no one knew what to do.
Yeah.
Compared to me, where, I don't know, by the grace of God, I don't have any kids, so I can just like, we're going to roll the dice, folks. I'm getting on planes. I would love to have that
all
discussion.
my buddies who I grew up with, like they just kind of powered through it and they just continued their lives. And, a couple of people got COVID, and for the most part, everybody was fine. But, because they were of the age and they knew they made the choice that they were in a population that they weren't actually going to affect their parents or grandparents and put people in a terrible position, which is probably the right thing in retrospect. But I'll tell you, like now, lib guidance here could ruin our country.
That's the thing is like, as soon as the outbreak started, I flew down to my grandfather, I didn't know what was going on. I wanted to be there to like Lysol every package that arrived at his home, make sure he was safe. He's got both of his shots. Thank God we got the vaccine. Thanks to President Trump, Operation Warp Speed. I can't wait to go hang out. I've got that already scheduled. Folks, life continues, and it's just so weird how the liberals, cling to this fear porn.
No kidding. Well, speaking of fear porn, and Stacey Abrams, frankly, she's been a hot topic. I didn't expect this to be a Stacey Abrams 3-time mentioned program, but I feel like she deserves it. There was a new poll that came out.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, in Georgia. And a majority of Georgia voters said that MLB is struck out.
Boom.
The All-Star game from Atlanta in the election law.
You love to see it.
Wow, who could call this other than us?
Great work. Great work, MLB.
Yep. And so it turns out, like, if you look through all of this stuff, the majority of people think that pulling the All-Star game is ridiculous, which it was. More people believe that the voting rights law that was passed was helpful than don't, right? So it's not even about whether or not you thought the reaction was bad. Like, they actually just like the law. Right. And this is the ultimate swing state that we're talking about. These ruined the Democratic comeback in Georgia with moments.
Huge mistake.
Getting it.
Huge mistake. I always have to go back to the hilarious point that, like, some of these CEOs, like there were 90 CEOs on this Zoom call. Some of them were like at the Masters, had to zoom in from Augusta. Like,
about boycotting Georgia.
Yeah, we should absolutely boycott Georgia. It's like, meanwhile, I'm at Augusta. But like, I think everyone, I felt like they would, but it seems like everyone saw through it. And like, the crazy thing is, like, especially post-COVID, all these businesses in the Atlanta area were counting on a bump, and like, for them to be like, oh no, we're actually going to just deprive you of business. Stacey Abrams thinks it's a good idea if we boycott you. And then USA Today, like, stealth edits her op-ed to get her off the hook.
Just for our listeners here, they stealth edited her op-ed to provide more distance between her comments and supporting boycotts.
Like, that was a huge sign. They must have seen some overnight polling and they're like, holy shit. Like, we gotta get distance from this.
Well, and Raphael Warnock, the newly elected radical liberal, Raphael Warnock from Georgia, he went from straight boycott to like, oh no boycott, like within a blink of an eye.
Yeah. I mean, they got the poll numbers and they're like, oh no.
Right.
And this is what we're talking about.
They called it Jim Crow 2.0. Biden did, and Stacey Abrams did. And all these people are now going to distance themselves from it and say, oh gosh, we didn't mean actually boycott. And it's like, well, you called it Jim Crow.
I mean, they did worse. It's worse than Jim Crow, folks. It was Jim Eagle, which only makes sense if you have a severe case of dementia. But I love they saw the poll numbers and they're like, holy moly, what have we done? And you know what they've done is they've opened themselves up to get punished because they need to reap what they've sown. All those businesses, listen, folks, if you're ever in Atlanta, there are so many great businesses. Get the lemon pepper wet wings at J.R. Crickets. They will change your life.
I love that.
I mean, Atlanta's a wonderful city, which is why, it especially broke my heart to see all this like woke mob push everyone away from that city, who, especially after COVID, the way the restaurants have suffered, to do everything they can to hurt these small businesses. Well, now you see the results, folks.
Totally. Now you see the results. I think the last piece of that poll that was particularly interesting is that 60% of Georgians opposed companies using their public role to shape political opinion or promote cultural change. That includes 55% of independents, which means CEOs are in a really rough place.
Yep.
I think if it's the case in Georgia, it's probably everywhere. We're going to have some news on that in the next few weeks. I know of a couple of like significant efforts that are being taken underway that are geared to pushing back on woke corporate America.
Thank God.
We're going to give you some updates on that. We're going to have some important people on to talk about it. We also have like 2 or 3 other things that we're not going to be able to get to today that I would love to talk about. One is Foldy deserves a Pulitzer.
Yeah, remember that, folks. We'll get into that. There's a lot of news on that front.
He deserves a Pulitzer for his coverage of Jennifer Cranholm and energy situation. We won't get into it, but we're going to have guests about it because it's that big.
It's major.
Yeah. So, good for Foldy. God, he's multitasking.
Right.
The other thing is the New Orleans Zoo, it canceled a 6-day pro police promotion, claiming community members were concerned that the event could be unintentionally divisive. It was basically just like a back the blue, thanks for police doing your job.
I mean, that's another example, just like we've been telling you, is stop listening to the DC journo circle. No one cares. No one cares outside of them. No one cares.
No, it just because you get an inquiry from the Times-Picayune in New Orleans does not mean that the community is in an uproar. It means that the 5 people who are paid to be agitators, who are like, anyway, I should, let me just curb it at that. I could speak for a long time about that.
You know what I want to get into directly? I already hyped it. Folks, this interview with JD is incredible. Yeah, I got a chance to listen. I got a chance to listen.
We got to play King of the Hill.
Oh, that's right. That's right. That's the candy we're giving the folks.
We got to play King of the Hill, and then we got to get to JD. I mean, this is just an action. We warned you up top.
Right? We did switcheroo, candy for candy.
Yeah, candy for candy. So let's get to King of the Hill. I've got Max Boot. The guy is just, look, he put on a wonderkin type performance last time out. I think he's gonna be tough to beat.
And folks may remember, I by a very slim margin, I was defeated last week. But this week, I think I'm bringing some real fire. I'm predicting a win.
Who'd you choose?
Ladies and gentlemen, we have none other than the expert of experts, Radio Free Tom Nichols.
His brand new. This is his first
appearance on the show. So for folks who don't know, King of the Hill essentially is me and Holmes select a brainworm, absolutely lost
conservative,
previous and current, quote conservative, who's lost their mind, dropping takes on Twitter, and Michael Duncan is the judge and jury.
I'm judge and jury.
Exactly.
And there's 3 rounds. They go tweet for tweet. The defending champion, that being Holmes, has to go first in the first round and first in the third round. And it's, best out of 3. You go tweet for tweet, and I decide as judge and jury of who wins each round.
I'm so excited. It's the first Tom Nichols appearance, and man, he had some takes, folks.
It's so good.
Let's go ahead and go ringside.
Ladies and gentlemen, your attention, please. It's time for King of the Hill. And now, in the red corner, hiding out of the Harvard Extension campus, standing high, feet 11 inches tall, Tom Radio Free Nichols. In the blue corner, hiding from under a crooked fedora, standing 5 feet 11 3/4 of an inch, and reigning heavyweight champion of the world, maximum permanent deployment, boo.
Okay, that's God, I can never get over the intro. The ringside introduction is just, It's just another level,
right?
It adds a touch of class to the whole program.
It does, it really does.
Shout out Ashbrook, behind the scenes, getting it done.
Yeah, yeah. So, I got to start here, and I'm going to make a strategic move because I'm looking at this week, and look, I'm not a Max Boot Twitter connoisseur, but I've seen how crazy it can be, and now 2 weeks in a row, I've had to sort of curate his tweets. I'll say this week there was more than I could choose from. I had to whittle down. I had to do it strategically. There are arguably more brainworm tapes than I've actually picked, but I'm selecting, as you learned from last week's show, I'm selecting based on my understanding of the judge and the jury.
Yeah. It's a lot of strategy involved.
Yeah. So I think I've got one put away. I got a couple that are really, really good.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just going to start here. Max Boot. Nice to have a president again who tries to promote racial healing rather than exacerbating the racial divide for political gain.
I got this.
And that's just on the frickin' nose, right? It's like the full on opposite of reality. And he just took it.
So I'm gonna try to take this firsthand. Folks, I think this tweet from Tom Nichols is the epitome of the Never Trump movement. The tweet is, yes, the prizes are taxable according to their value. I declined a golf trip because I couldn't afford the taxes on it.
What?
He really put that out there.
Hold on. Was this in response to something?
It was his own tweet. He responds to himself. He tells on himself. He's like, listen, folks, I'm an honest man. I was offered a golf trip, but as every man, I couldn't afford the tax.
Is the context to him defending high taxes?
I think the context was him being like, you know what? I have no thinking. I'm just someone who's paid to take golf trips. Completely exposed his role in the machine.
Well, that is what they do. I'd like to think that claiming what's happened over the last 3 months has been racial harmony is a, shall we say, removed from reality perspective.
So, as judge and jury, I'll provide a little bit of commentary here. So, number one, on Holmes' tweet from Boot, yeah, it's absurd. It's absurd, right? After the Derek Chauvin verdict, and there was that video of the one girl trying to stab the other girl, and the officer fired and basically saved the other girl's life. The White House cast doubt on the police actions. It didn't feel like they were really promoting racial harmony during that.
Right.
I'll be honest, like funding critical race theory doesn't feel like that either.
Doesn't really, does it?
Doesn't feel like it.
Does it? Yeah. Smug, I mean, I feel like Smug really knew to pick this though.
It's
because this is sort of the sort of quality of tweet that really upsets me the most is that these are the people who are supposed to be our moral betters, the people who are going to lead the Republican Party and the conservative movement out of the wilderness. Is the guy who says, I couldn't take the golf trip because, I couldn't figure out the tax write-off or whatever.
Yeah. A year of a pandemic, and his concern is, listen, folks, you got to pay taxes on the golf trip.
Depending upon your outcome, I want an addendum to this because I have something to add to that tweet.
Oh, this is an appeal?
No. I'll be satisfied by whatever your answer is. I just want to comment on what I think that all means in that tweet, but I don't want to sway the judge of the jury.
I got to go Smug.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Round one.
I think it's fair. Here's why I think it's fair. Not because of what was presented here. I think it's fair because any person who talks about the tax implications of a golf trip is somebody who has cheated the fuck out of their taxes. Allegedly, without information.
Many people saying
on a lot of other things, right? Because if you've thought about that, if you thought about the tax implications of, first of all, it's got to be unbelievably expensive because
I love how it is so just emblematic of Never Trump. They're like, we will sell our soul to the devil, but I gotta figure out if that's tax deductible.
Do you think about someone's like, hey, do you want to go to Pebble Beach?
Yeah.
Let me calculate the tax implications.
Get it right off on that one.
So the implication is that this golf trip was somehow a business expense for him. Or what?
Well, if it's a gift, right? So if somebody gives you something of substantial value, you're obligated to pay a tax on it, right? But there's two things that are true about that. One, you're so attuned to your itemizing that makes a difference, right? Because most people, either you pay quarterly or you pay annually, and whatever you pay, you get a refund because you overpay your taxes by
This is not tax advice, ladies and gentlemen. You should consult your tax advisor and accountant. But I think it's about $600. Above that, gifts are taxable. But consult your tax advisors. We're right up to tax season.
I'm loving the disclaimers in this podcast.
It's so just good. When I saw this tweet, it just like threw me. I could not handle myself that the guy is just like, hold up, folks.
It has to be like a $30,000 trip.
It's got to be an insane trip.
Let's just say it.
To be like I to not pay the taxes on a trip because like it was such a large fee. It must have been like, wow, we're gonna have like woolly mammoths as your caddy. Like it must have been some wild, extravagant shit that he's like, I can't handle the tax implications.
Like Mickelson hits your chip shots.
Yeah.
Right?
It's gotta be like out there. So
Mickelson would never have that bozo. All right, let's go. Bring
round
it
two. Smug, you got to go first. Round two.
All right, let's see. I love this tweet so much for controversial reasons. Tom Nichols tweeted, glad to see that even with vaccines, people for now are still wearing a mask to the gym. Except for that one muscled up guy in every gym who doesn't wear a mask and glares at everyone, daring them to notice, which I think is a side effect of nutrigenics overdose.
I love the insecurity of his tweet.
It's so
well, if you know, right?
Can I get into that? I mean, I don't want to be too mean or out of pocket, but man,
we've already walked up the line.
Holmes, you better bring some heat here.
I know I'm going to readjust, but I've got to put away. It's simply not even fair. The American right, which was effectively allied with the Kremlin in 2016 and 2020, has so successfully internalized the secret of Russian disinformation operations, the willingness to simply make things up, that it no longer requires much help from Putin. I would just call it. That's a walk. That was going to be my walk off.
So tough, dude.
You know the judge and jury. You know how much this upsets me. You know how much this upsets me.
That's a walk off.
I got to point out, because we did the earlier segment about, Cheney and undermining elections and how much the media, basically did the exact same thing, undermining the 2016 election with Russiagate. Everyone forgets there was a Bernie Sanders supporter who said that the Republicans are traitors and Donald Trump's more Russian than American. And then he tried to murder a bunch of Republicans on a baseball diamond.
That's right.
Right.
Did the Democrats change their behavior at all? Did we have a national conversation about how calling Trump Putin's puppet or calling the, Senate Majority Leader Moscow Mitch might have been a touch too far? No, we didn't.
Nope.
No, now the conversation is it's internalized. It's internalized. We didn't find collusion. We didn't find conspiracy. But now it's collusion just by the fact that the Republican Party doesn't agree with my position. It's already collusion. They did Putin's work. It's fucking absurd. And I'm sorry, I know we're trying to cuss less here on the podcast, but it is just so entirely morally bankrupt. And of course, it comes from a guy like Max Boot.
I love. I got an activist.
This isn't a bit. I am like actually physically worked up.
I knew it. See, this is why I walk. If I would have, my goal was to try to have this as the put away.
I had to go wild. I had to drop this. Like Tom Nichols, why would you tweet this? He's mad at the guy in the gym with the muscles. Like
Smug, you can't.
I can't say it. I can't say it, folks. But man, you know what Nichols is trying to say.
Holmes wins round 2.
You gave that to him? Wow.
I'm giving it to him.
It's a put away. It's a put away. All right, so here we go. Max Boot. This is another just exceptional hot take. Many conservatives think as an exceptional nation, we have nothing to learn from any other country. But that is hubris speaking. The coronavirus pandemic should have shattered those illusions, and not even our rapid vaccinations can undo it.
Oh, I got this.
So wait, but hold on. Let me. It's challenging. This is part of an entire column that he ended up writing on the subject that is basically like America's not great, that it's just like sort of an average, mediocre, as he calls it, country, right? But this particular take is what irked me, in that it is because of coronavirus that we should be aware of our shortcomings, right? A country of free commerce, of freedom of expression, we move around, we can't be soldered into our homes like China. Like, no, if you get soldered into your homes, you're going to have a really good rate at keeping the infections down. We happen to have the lowest death rate of many, many industrialized nations, but that's the example of us being second best. Incredible.
These are the same people clamoring for us to start exporting all of the vaccines that our companies produced, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's weird how that works. The communists really hate capitalism until we produce all these vaccines the rest of the world need.
But that's my favorite part. That notwithstanding.
Yeah, right. No, that's an asterisk on the entire, global pandemic, us having all these vaccines.
People who effing cured it. No, but that's just, okay. It is what it is.
All right. So this, I got Tom Nichols, the expert. Trolls are different, but we can make watching Tucker Carlson about as socially acceptable as smoking in the ICU if we're really determined about it. And we do it with a lot of seriousness and mockery combined. Imagine a boomer trying to understand how anything works. This is such a boomer take.
It's so earnest. He's so earnest.
He is. It's just like, wow. Wow. This is why you get cyberbullied, boomer. Trolls are different. But we can make watching Tucker Carlson about as socially acceptable as smoking in the ICU. Imagine being in that brain.
Just incredible.
Yeah, what I love about it is he's really genuine about the take, like that they can do it if they pull together. But like the philosophy undergirding it is like absolutely like petty tyrant stuff, right? Like we have to stop somebody else's First Amendment rights, and it is.
That's like, the beauty of like this lib boomer sincerity is they're like, hey, here's the thing: is we got to just like trample on the Constitution.
Yeah,
but I think this is gonna work, guys.
Yeah,
a mix of we need seriousness and mockery combined.
Sticks and stones can't break our bones, but we will pull your FCC license.
Yeah, that's what. I can't believe this guy's not been on the show until now. He's a gold
This
mine.
is so good.
His brain is so broken.
Gosh.
What's the ruling?
I mean, and we have this oftentimes when we play this game, we come down to the end and it's very divergent takes.
2 weeks in a row, this has been a barn burner.
Gosh.
COVID showed that America is not exceptional.
Okay, well, so if that's your closing statement, Smug, you get a closing statement here. I don't want to be accused of putting a thumb on the scale.
We can make watching Tucker Carlson about as socially acceptable as smoking in the ICU if we're really determined about it.
Smug wins. Smug wins. Smug wins. Smug wins. Smug wins.
I love that he went right back to the well. I would have done the same thing.
It's insane.
Well
It's
played.
insane.
Like on actual like philosophy and intent, I mean, Boot would take that. But when you add the sort of genuine sincerity and the cringe, I gotta go with Smug.
Only a boomer could be that into it. Like, just like, what?
You're seeing this trend play out with this particular judge and jury, where there is a when there is misplaced authenticity.
Yep, it's huge.
It's a huge. big component.
There's a metagame to this.
There are rules. I feel like there are rules to the internet that adults, they enter into a social contract when they start tweeting. When you're just getting new to it, I mean, maybe you're going to make some mistakes, but you include retweet if you agree, or you do something like this. You're violating some unspoken rules of social media. Take that shit to Facebook. Like, you can't have that on Twitter.
Land of the wolves.
It is.
Can't have it.
Twitter's a land of wolves. You have to be ready for war.
Go to
You're
a
in the
small
wrong
town.
place.
Go to a small town on Facebook where the rule of law still exists.
Yeah.
This is the land of wolves. Welcome to Twitter.
Vietnam.
What a fine face off. Tom Nichols. Thank you so much for the boomer takes.
A new champion is crowned.
And his first week in it. And now, I guess, finally, I have already attempted to seg to it before because I'm so excited about this interview. Folks, we got JD Vance, the man everyone wants to hear from, the man who I am excited to hear from, and I already know this is going to be a great interview.
Let's go right to it. I want to welcome to the program a esteemed author and a conservative thought leader, JD Vance. Welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me. Good to chat with you.
Listen, man, you're everywhere. You've been everywhere since you wrote Hillbilly Elegy, critically acclaimed, bestseller, everything you can sort of attach an award to, and then ultimately they made a movie out of that. That had to have been a hell of a experience.
Yeah, pretty crazy experience to have a movie made about your life. And I'd say the weirdest part about it for me was seeing Glenn Close portraying my grandmother because, she really tried hard to get it right, and the makeup people tried hard to get it right. If you actually watch the movie and you wait until the end credits, you get to see my grandmother and what she really looked like. And Glenn really did just look just like her. My grandma's been dead for 15 years. She was this larger than life figure. We all just adored her. But to see her in the flesh, even though it wasn't really her, was just such a bizarre experience. And the first time it happened, we were on set in Georgia, and it turned into like a bit of a family reunion. My uncle was there, my mom, my aunt, my cousin Rachel, my wife and my two kids, or I guess I only had one kid at that point. And when we all saw Glenn, it was just this crazy moment where nobody could actually speak. And my aunt and my mom were tearing up a little bit. Even my uncle, who's not an emotional guy, just got very emotional over seeing their mom, who had been dead for 15 years, in the flesh. And, there are all these weird little things that I didn't appreciate about how an actor or actress could bring a character to life. But the way my grandma held her cigarette the way that her face would twitch when she got annoyed, all of these things were recreated.
She nailed all of that?
She nailed all that, and she really just did an amazing job. And that was definitely the coolest part of it. The whole experience, the coolest part was seeing Glenn Close recreate my grandmother. And we just, we'll have that memory and have those experiences for a lifetime. And that's the coolest part about it.
Man, that is so cool. And what's so amazing is that she could recreate it. I don't know about your family. It didn't seem like the kind of family that had a camcorder running at all times, but
no, there were a couple, my aunt and uncle sort of later in my grandma's life, there were a couple of, they were maybe 10 or 15 second scenes of my grandmother where you could see her. But what they really did is they interviewed all the members of the family. And at the time I thought these are they questions to be asked. They were asking about like, what is her voice like? What would she say if she was really angry? What would she, like when would she raise her voice? When would she lower her voice? How would she hold her cigarette? They were asking all these questions and trying to create a mental image from a woman that, we had some photos and, maybe a few video clips, but we really didn't have obviously this exhaustive video library of my grandmother, to your point. But they were able to really take those interviews and turn it into something that, wasn't 100% match, but for Mamaw at least was like 99%. And it was pretty cool.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, one of the reasons I found you so fascinating from the beginning of your emergence is the mainstream media and sort of punditry class had no idea what to make of a rise of a populist movement on the center right. And they've treated Republicans writ large as somewhat of like a foreign exchange student, basically for decades. Right. And they were desperately searching for some way to explain how could somebody vote for Donald Trump? And in some ways they picked up your book in the same way that they picked up Michael Lewis's book about the TARP situation back in LA. And they're like, okay, well, here's the manual.
Yeah.
And I got to imagine you were pretty conflicted about that because you're like, no, you actually really don't get it.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, first of all, it's so weird to, as a person, be appointed by the media as this like spokesperson for the region that you came from, right? It's just such a bizarre thing. And I had such a conflicted view on it. Like on the one hand, how can I possibly speak for a group of people that's as big and diverse and as crazy as the community that I came from, crazy in a good way, of course. And I always felt a little bit weird being asked to put in this position by the press. And then the flip side of it was, well, better my voice than no one's, right? Even though I'm an inadequate spokesman for, white working class Americans or maybe Appalachian Americans, it's at least better to have one voice out there than no one's. And so, while I didn't say yes to every media interview, I said yes to a lot of them. And I tried as best as I could to try to explain this mental frame of reference for the people that I came from. And I'm sure that I always did a pretty inadequate job. I sometimes felt like Jane Goodall must have felt, where they're like, they're asking me these questions like, you've actually spent time among these grade eight, like you've seen them communicate with each other and speak with one another and, pick bugs out of each other's hair. Like, what are they actually like? What are they thinking and feeling? And, even the questions themselves were so loaded, but I still tried to do the best that I could and try to give some voice to a group of people that I really do think have been largely ignored and largely condescended to by a lot of the people who run our big media institutions. And so, it was always this like uneasy spokesmanship role. And I'm kind of glad that, there were a lot of bad things that happened after the 2016 election. I mean, you may remember this, Josh. There was like a 2-week period where everyone was like, well, we're going to be empathetic and sympathetic towards the Trump voter. We're going to try to understand where people came from and, why they elected this guy and why they're upset with the direction of the country. And that literally lasted, it felt like, for 2 weeks. And then it was like, well, either Trump stole the election with the help of Vladimir Putin, or all of the people who voted for him are racists or bigots, or maybe both of those things are true. And this brief period where I kind of felt optimistic about the direction of the country right after Trump won was just totally obliterated. And I realized that, there was not much of an appetite to actually get to know the people who were most enthusiastic about Trump and most discouraged, I think, about the direction of the country, not just over the last 4 years, the last, 10 to 20 to 30 years.
But in some ways, it's a familiar place for those of us who are not from the coasts. Right?
Sure.
There's a moment where everybody sort of pats you on your head and said, "Oh, isn't that cute? Let's listen to them." And then ultimately, you got to go back to figuring out how to, sort of take them out of the conversation, right? And you wrote about some of this, and I got to imagine that was basically your early life ending up at Yale Law School, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. There's always a bit of a way in which you become a token or you become a representative for an entire group of people, because you go to a place like Yale and almost all of the people come from more or less the same background, right? There's maybe a little bit of racial diversity. There's maybe a little bit of diversity in where people went to school. Some people went to Harvard for undergrad, some people went to Yale, some people went to Stanford. But that was like diversity to them was well, this guy in our friend group went to Cal Berkeley for undergrad. So there's definitely a weird way where you do become this sort of like representative for a group of people. And for most people, it's not like a negative thing, right? It's your curiosity, you're interesting, they want to understand where you came from. For some people, they're definitely a little condescending. And that's kind of how the mainstream press reacted to the book at first, right? It was like, we don't look at this guy as an equal. He certainly doesn't belong in this group of people. But like, it's interesting, right? What he's talking about is interesting. We're going to be fascinated by it. We're going to give him some airtime. And then some people were condescending and very, critical, very mean in different ways. But that was, you're definitely right that the way that I sort of encountered the elite world at Yale Law School was not all that dissimilar from the way the media encountered me when the book came out. And in some ways, I guess I was a little prepared for it, but I'm sure in other ways I continue to be unprepared for this. In the same way you mentioned, I think when you come from a part of the country that isn't very well represented in these elite circles, you're always kind of 1 foot in one place and 1 foot in the other. You always sort of feel deeply committed to your own people, but you also recognize that these new folks that you spend time with, they have a lot of power and influence, and they hold a lot of the keys to a lot of the opportunities that are out there, right? I think you're always trying to find some balance between being true to who you are, but also taking advantage of whatever opportunities these outsiders are going to give you.
Yeah. And what I like most about your story, and I think in many ways it parallels what we're seeing in the political movements in this country, is that you never just picked up and went home, right? You just kind of kept fighting. You kept who you were, but you kept, shoving people into lockers, as we say on the Ruthless Variety program. And I can't imagine, Yale of all places, that had to have been a real culture shock for you.
Oh, absolutely. More than anything I had ever experienced. My like post-high school trajectory was I enlisted in the Marine Corps, and that's definitely a culture shock in its own way. Standing on the yellow footprints, having a drill instructor yell at you. Went from there to Ohio State, from there to Yale Law School. And, all these places, as much as they were different, I, got a great education, really loved Ohio State, but it was not that different, right? The people that I spent my time around, all of my friends, the people that I lived with at Ohio State, almost all of them grew up within 10 miles of where I grew up in Southwestern Ohio, right? Even though it was a nice university, it was not like a radically different culture from the place that I had come from. But Yale really was totally different, right? You would hear people talk about how they were middle class, and it's like, oh, cool. So what's your dad do? Oh, he's the head of surgery at Brigham and Women's Hospital, and my mom is a chemist at Harvard. It's like, oh yeah, middle class. That's what that means in Middletown, Ohio.
Yeah, totally. Breathitt County's got a lot of that kind of middle class, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's middle class in southeastern Kentucky. So there's definitely just a way in which the expectations that people have, the way they define themselves, is just totally radically different. And the way that I found it most bizarre is that a lot of relationships were really transactional, right? If I think about the friends that I acquired for the first 30 years of my life, right? It was people you shared something in common with them, some common value, even if it was just like, we really like Ohio State football and we want to talk about, who like the backup left guard is on the Ohio State offensive line next year. Your friendships were more about the things that mattered. They were less about what somebody could accomplish for you and more about, what values you had in common with somebody. And the really weird thing about Yale is that there was this constant networking going on in the background, right? People were constantly sort of, I want to get in front of this professor because this professor knows such and such knows somebody that I want to work for. Or, this professor is really well respected by this federal judge that I eventually want to clerk for. Mm-hmm. Or I heard that this professor used to work at this law firm and still has connections there. Like, I wonder how I can get a good relationship with that person.
Just sort of like a vacant emotional way of handling it. Right?
Yeah, it's just a hyper transactional way. Like, I'm going to build relationships based on what these people can accomplish for me, not any shared value system or shared goals or anything like that. And again, I don't think that it was like, I don't mean this as a pure criticism. It's definitely a weird way to go about building relationships. But I think a lot of these kids, that was just the way that it worked, right? In their cultural, that was how you dealt with people, is you were constantly trying to get ahead. And, it was my first introduction to just the world of our sort of striving elite. People are constantly thinking about how they can climb that next rung on the social ladder. And that's just not how I grew up, right? Even the people in my hometown who were very ambitious, they were ambitious in just a radically different way, right? It wasn't like, I'm going to figure out and plot how I can get 5 steps ahead in 5 years. It was, well, I'd really like to be a doctor, so I'm going to work really hard and figure out how I can become a doctor, right? It was just a different way in which I think ambition manifested itself, but it made me feel pretty icky, right? Because I just wasn't accustomed to thinking about people like that. If I wanted to get to know a professor, it was because, she wrote a really cool book, not because I really wanted her to write a letter of recommendation for me 4 years down the road.
Totally. It's so funny that you mentioned that. So much of that resonates with my side. I remember getting to DC, it was very similar, right? And then with the advent of social media, you see somebody says something or writes something really nice about you. When I first got to DC, I had like a real aversion to retweeting it, right? I'm like, oh, I can't do that, right? Because it's like, that's where you're from. And that's kind of like it's the difference between that sort of Midwestern or culturally conservative point of view that you're talking about and this very transactional, corporate-minded side of kind of elite mindset, which I think this is the conversation I wanted to get into, because I think you were sort of first to the fire in diagnosing this very real cultural difference and extrapolating it out to the pillars of like corporate America. Right? And woke America. I heard you talking about woke corporations almost before anybody else.
Yeah.
Do you think it's this that's sort of begun to drive that?
I think that there is a big part of this going on, right? So what I started to realize, when I was not quite a student at Yale, but maybe 2014, 2015, I had moved out to Silicon Valley. I was working in the technology world. And the framework that I had before I got there was that, conservatives owned the business and financial institutions. Like Silicon Valley was kind of a conservative world just because it was the business world. Maybe it was more libertarian than conservative, but it was certainly on the right of center. And, the media, the academy, these were all left-wing institutions. And so if you were left-wing, you went into those places, and you were right-wing, you went to go and work at Google or Facebook. And, I got out to Silicon Valley and I realized like very quickly that while there was a little bit of a libertarian bent out there, it was pretty clear that a lot of the most left-wing people were going out to work in Silicon Valley tech companies, right? Mm-hmm. And it started to dawn on me that, eventually these people who are like junior engineers or junior HR people at Google, they're going to start to control the direction of this company, right? They're going to start to influence what policies, what politics, what cultural influence this company has. And I think that's a big part of what's going on with wokeness in America, is that a lot of people who would have traditionally went and worked at left-wing institutions went and worked at big companies or big businesses, and they changed the culture along with them. So we're just sort of seeing the natural consequence of a lot of left-wing people starting to take over these institutions. I think there are like deeper and more fundamental structural questions. Like I do think that, you know, one of the reasons why Silicon Valley has gone woke, and again, this is something I started to recognize very early on, is that, you know, the Valley was very cognizant of the fact that it was not a national business place, right? It was not like Silicon Valley's profits did not derive, especially in the future, primarily or at least exclusively from the United States, right? They needed to have good relationships in Europe. They needed to have good relationships in China and other parts of East Asia and India. And there was a real recognition that these companies, because their bread wasn't buttered by the American consumer anymore or by the American government, that I think they would become more international and focused, and that would obviously influence their politics as well. And you know, just one pretty obvious example of this is, you know, Google pretty much does no work with the U.S. Department of Defense, right? For a couple of different reasons, both because its increasingly international customer base doesn't want it to, but also because its woke American lefty base of employees, they don't want to work at a company that does work with the Department of Defense. But Google does actually work with a lot of foreign militaries, including the Chinese military, on a lot of different things. Of course, other companies do as well. And that's never as controversial among the people who consider themselves sort of woke and socially progressive, because that's for, I think, complicated reasons. That's just not where their focus is, right? They don't care if Google works with a foreign adversary that's imprisoning and enslaving millions of people. They just don't want that company to work with the American Department of Defense. And I think that's incredibly irrational, but it's also, you know, pretty consistent with how like the American hyper left has operated towards the US government for the past 30 or 40 years. And so again, in some ways, it's just the left wing of the country moving into the business institutions in a way that they'd always avoided.
Yeah, it's amazing. Well, let's talk politics for a minute.
Sure.
Because I think we've seen this natural transition as someone who is sort of an unelected and probably unrequested spokesperson for a whole bunch of people in this country. You were put in a place where you brought to life an awful lot of the thoughts and concerns of generations of Americans that frankly didn't have a voice for a long time. And so now you are being asked by a number of people to consider politics yourself. Where's your thought process on that? And just to be clear for our listeners, there's an awful lot of people in Ohio asking JD to run for Senate in an open seat vacated will be in 2022 by Rob Portman. Where's your thought process on that?
Yeah, so you're definitely thinking about it pretty seriously. I thought about it briefly in 2018, decided not to do it for a host of reasons we can get into. But, you know, for me, really the question is, like, can I actually do anything with a U.S. Senate platform? Because my life is really good. It's going to require a lot of sacrifices to actually get that platform. And I want to have some confidence that if I can be the senator or a U.S. senator for the state of Ohio, that I can actually do something meaningful to solve the state's and the country's problems. And I think I don't have like all the time in the world to make that decision. I mean, part of that is like, am I the right voice at this moment in time? Part of it is like the policies that I think are best for the country to pursue. Are they policies that are actually going to do a lot of good, but can they actually get a political movement behind them? Because it's one thing to have good policies, but you actually have to get elected to enact or support any of them. So it's really just thinking through, like, am I the right guy to serve the people of Ohio in this national platform? And that's a pretty complicated decision. My wife is very supportive of it. That's sort of the most important and the biggest hurdle. She's very supportive of it. I'm obviously very interested in it. But that's kind of the thing that I'm still figuring out. And that's a pretty complicated question. But to me, it's like my vision of the country is pretty simple and pretty straightforward. Like I think that if you work hard and you play by the rules, you should be able to support a middle-class family on a single job, right? And I think that is like what I think America should be about, is like, if you're a hardworking guy and you want to have a family and you want to support that family in some middle class comfort, you should be able to do that so long as you work hard and so long as you play by the rules. And that implicates like a whole host of really complicated policy questions, right? I think one part of having a middle class lifestyle is participating meaningfully in your own country and the public affairs of your country. And the most common concern that I hear from people is, well, I'm terrified that if I say what I actually think at work, I'm going to get fired, right?
Yeah.
You can't be a real American participant in our country if you're worried you're going to get fired from your job or censored on social media.
And that certainly, by the way, has not stopped the left by any fraction. Right?
No, it's not. No.
That's their new MO.
Exactly. And people on the left don't worry about this. If you are on the political left, you don't worry that your political views are going to cause consequences for you. If you're on the American right, almost everyone that I talk to is, right? That's also, of course, a question about jobs and the economy, right? How do we actually ensure that we have a middle-class economy that works for people, not just for the very well-educated, right? And I don't think that we should have the sort of society where if you want to have a middle-class job, you have to go and spend 4 years getting a college degree, incurring a fair amount of debt, acquiring a skill that probably isn't even that connected to the job that you're ultimately going to do. And so I think it sort of implicates our education policy. And of course it implicates our trade policy. Like, are there actually good jobs for middle-class people to do, or have we shipped all of them off to East Asia? So like that vision, I guess, implicates a whole host of policy questions. But that's really sort of what I believe is, like, you should be able to have a good life if you're a hardworking person in this country. It's that simple.
It's amazing to hear you talk with substance about that. That's a sort of a rarity. You might find it surprising in people who are seeking office.
That's depressing.
Beneath the surface of the water there, JD. We really appreciate you actually putting some thought into what you do. How consequential. But look, I think this is an interesting time for a person like you. And obviously it goes without saying that the primary is going to be a very competitive marketplace in Ohio. There's a number of candidates already in that race. You hadn't run for office before.
Yep.
But you've had an awful lot of life experiences in tricky situations where, people who know you, nobody wants to bet against you. So what do you think the lane is for JD Vance in Ohio?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm probably, maybe this is just my political ignorance talking, I try to resist the lane talk a little bit because, the way it's often formulated is like there's a Trump lane and there's a moderate lane. And, you may know, Josh, like I was not a Trump guy in 2016, was an enthusiastic supporter in 2020, sort of, took me a little while to come around. But I don't want to run as somebody else's person. I don't want to run as anything other than a senator who could potentially deliver good results for the constituents in Ohio. But I also, I don't want to run as like the moderate guy, because that's not where my actual politics are. That's not how I see the world. And so, my theory of this is that if I do pull the trigger, it's to just be the most interesting candidate in the race, right? I think people get very bored with politics, even if they agree with the slogans they hear from politicians. Their eyes start to glaze over a little bit after a while. And my thing is, like, I'm going to talk about real things. I'm going to be my own man, and I'm going to try to make a pitch to the people that they're actually interested in hearing, because I'm talking about something real. And I think that's the secret, actually, of President Trump's appeal in 2016 is, like, people wanted to cover the rhetoric and they wanted to cover, the things that he said that were allegedly offensive, but that what they always missed was he was actually saying something interesting and new, right? It wasn't just the same old slogans they had heard for 20 or 30 years. It was authentic, and it was interesting. And I think that would be my basic strategy is, like, you see it on my social media. Hopefully you see it in a way that I talk about things. It's just like, talk about real things and be authentic about it, and hope that whether people are on, the political moderate side or the political conservative side, that they can find something about my authenticity and about the fact that I'm talking about real issues to identify with and to support.
That's as good a plan as I've heard yet, JD. Let me switch to the three questions. These suckers are important to the Ruthless audience, right? So
Yeah.
I'm going to test your authenticity here, but because you'd be surprised. The only way you screw these things up is when you try to be political.
Yeah. Right.
So the first question is your last meal on Earth. What would it be?
Yeah. So, I mean, it would be a giant ribeye steak first.
Yes.
Cooked medium rare with lots of salt. Some kind of potato, probably just basic mashed potatoes, and then Grater's ice cream for dessert, which is kind of sounds like a political answer maybe because Grater's is a Cincinnati thing, but Grater's ice cream is actually just better than all the other ice creams that I've ever had. So, and I'm like an obsessive ice cream fan. So yeah, I would do that. I mean, the other thing I'll say about this is I am one of those people that is just a complete glutton about dessert. Right, I'm one of those people that I can't, if my wife or I make a dozen chocolate chip cookies, I can eat 12 chocolate chip cookies in one sitting. Now I'll feel a little bit bad about myself afterwards, but like a not a terrible backup answer would be I could just eat like 12 freshly baked chocolate chip cookies.
Nice. That's authentic if there ever was. All right. So the second question, a little bit different for you because I think we probably already know the answer. But if you weren't interested, let's broaden it out. If you weren't interested in politics or sort of social commentary on where this country is, where do you think professionally you would find yourself over the long term?
Yeah, so I mean, I actually work in the technology investment world. We sort of invest in and help early stage companies grow, and I've been able to do this here in Cincinnati, which is where I'm at right now, my home. So that's probably a pretty good answer, and it's maybe too easy of an answer because that's actually what I do during my day job.
Right.
The thing that I would love to do is train dogs. Especially German Shepherds. I love dogs. I think they're just a ton of fun.
Wait, hold on. You want to train German Shepherds? There's an opening in the White House.
That's right. Oh, I forgot. Yeah, Biden has like this dog that bites everybody in the White House. Yeah, I've heard about this.
For the love of God and all things safety for the people of the White House, go to 1600. Offer your services.
Well, I have no ability to do it yet because I have no requisite skills. But I think it would be super fun to just train and work with dogs because they're such cool creatures. They're so loyal, and would let you be outside a lot too, which I like being.
Did you work with dogs when you were in Iraq?
No, not at all. No, I did not work with dogs when I was in Iraq, but we always had dogs growing up. And especially when I was in Southeastern Kentucky with my grandma, there were always just sort of dogs around, stray dogs that I would adopt and feed and bring into the house, even though she hated that. But I've always been a dog person. Other than I'm like one of these people who really likes, these little creatures. So I love kids, I love dogs. And I think it'd be fun to work with dogs for a living.
That's a good answer. All right. So here's the third and final question. What motivates JD Vance more, the thrill of victory or the agony of defeat? And here's the way to think about it. I'll give you a little bit of a cheat code here.
Yeah.
The thrill of victory, obviously you're motivated by the win. The way to think about the agony of defeat is that that's Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
Right? He's just physically pained. He can't live a second with the idea that he would lose something. Where do you fall on this spectrum?
I'm 100% on the Michael Jordan side of this. The idea of
there's a Midwestern guy through and through.
Yeah. But the idea of losing anything is just, it's very, very, it's very hard for me. And I see this in my 3-year-old son actually, where he loves to, he's starting to be into like racing. And even though, I'm obviously older than him, if he races me and I don't let him win, he wants to kill me, right? He's so mad that he hasn't won or that he's lost, right? And it's not like he gets super excited if he's won. He just hates to lose. And I'm kind of like that, actually. I don't get that happy when I win. It's more just the relief that I haven't lost.
You're passing along the curse to the next generation.
That's right.
I feel like I look at my own kids and I'm seeing the exact same thing.
I mean, what do most people answer to that question? I mean, I've listened to the podcast a couple of times, but what is the most common answer? Because
it's an even split, to be honest with you. But you can tell right away based on somebody's personality, where they're from, what their background is. You can tell what it's going to be, right? There's a lot of glass half full conservatives that, you can tell right away. They're an optimism person. They're a win. This is a thrill of victory type person. And then there are these like primarily in the Midwest driven people who, like quit their basketball team when they were 7 years old because they didn't make the All-Star team. You know what I mean?
Well, ask my wife how fun it is to play like board games with me.
Oh no.
And it's one of these things where we have to be on the same team because, okay, if we lose, that sucks. I don't like to lose. But if like we lose and we're on the opposite side, it's just this soul crushing, like, how can we even live in the same house together? I'm a loser and you're a winner. It's not even okay. So she hates to play. We can only play board games if we're on the same team.
Oh, it's so funny. I have so many friends with the same family dynamic. It's like you gotta choose these teams very carefully. And you can't willy-nilly it. It needs to be thoughtful because there's going to be hours of silence if we do it.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Listen, JD, we can't thank you enough for the time that you've given us. I know you've got a lot to think about, and the Ruthless fans, the minions out there are very interested in what you ultimately decide.
Well, I appreciate that, and always enjoy talking to you guys, and hopefully we can do it again soon.
Yeah, stay in touch.
Okay, take care, man. See ya.
So here's the thing about JD. Whatever you think about, and he's not afraid to enter into very controversial territory. Whatever you think about his perspective, he seems very authentic to me. Like he genuinely believes what he believes. Yeah. Like he came out, he was like, look, I wasn't a Trump guy. I had a problem with Trump. He knows very well that if he runs for Senate, a huge segment of that primary electorate is entirely aligned with Trump, but he feels very comfortable saying that because he's like, look, that's not what you're ultimately going to vote for me am I the most Trump guy? I happen to support Trump. He voted for Trump, but like, that's more, he's more than that. He's got, which is interesting to me. I kind of like, I wish we had more of that in politics. People were like, don't put me in the frickin' box.
Yep.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard, dude. And this, we've dealt with a lot of, political candidates, and it's like, it's very easy for people to get overcoached very early.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I mean, one of the big attractions to Trump in 2016 was the fact that you couldn't put him in a box.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And every time they thought they had a gotcha on him, it was like, oh, you donated to a Democrat. It's like, well, I donated to everybody.
Yeah.
I was a businessman.
I got to say, I don't want to be official about it. I hope he runs. I love what he has to say. We could use the first based senator. Great interview. Great interview.
It was a good interview. We'll see what happens. And if he gets in, we'll follow it closely. And he did agree that if he gets in, he'll come back and share his new perspective on what it's like to be a Senate candidate. So
hell, if he runs, he should announce on the show. That should become a thing now.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Push him on that.
So
all right, pal.
I think that's a wrap. What a great episode. I told you folks, it's going to be like a Red Bull and a vodka. It's going to hit and keep rolling. So until next time, minions, keep the faith, hold the line, and own the libs. We'll see you on Tuesday. Stay ruthless.